I grew up in the Bronx with my mother and my father and my 2 younger siblings and 3 older siblings. My family was very poor. My mom had bipolar, and my father had asked us whether or not we wanted to move to Connecticut to be closer to our sisters, and we agreed. Upon reaching Connecticut, within months, my mom had a manic episode, and my father and her got into an argument, and they decided to split up. And while my father was away in New Jersey, my mom, she became violent, verbally aggressive and physically violent, and we were removed from her care and placed into kinship foster care with my sister, who was 18 years old at the time. I stayed with my sister for a few months. I entered foster care when I was 13 years old because of my mom's mental illness and because of my father passed away with AIDS. So I ended up going into a group home in Waterbury, Connecticut. It was all girls group home, and I was there for about 6 days, and it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life. Then after that, I was placed in a group home in Bridgeport, Connecticut within a week with my brother, and we stayed there for a few months. And then I ended up going into a foster home in Stratford, Connecticut. And that was with an African-American family who, were very good. I had a really good relationship with, especially the foster mother. After that, I ended up going to my 3rd foster home with a Hispanic family, and it was a good foster home, but I didn't feel very emotionally connected with my foster parents. One of the last things that I remember my father telling me before he passed away was he was asking me a promise. Promise me you're going to go to college. I promised that, I was going to go and get my education, and I sincerely meant it. I pushed myself to make it to college, and then while I was in school, I didn't know exactly what it is that I wanted to do. And one night, I remember in the middle of the night, I just woke up from a deep sleep and just started thinking about social work. I thought it was the most random experience ever, but literally, social work, it was a thought that just came so loudly in my head and woke me up, and I'm like, it was an epiphany. And I remember wanting to explore, race within child welfare setting, because while I was in foster care, I had observed that there were a lot of Hispanic and African American children. I was curious. I'm like, what does that tell me about child welfare? After I graduated, I didn't know what kind of social work I wanted to do at the time. I had a worker from Casey Family Services encouraged me to apply to Columbia University, and I never really, it was an Ivy League school, and I never really thought about that. And then I was like, you know what? Okay, so I told him, I was like, I'm going to get into Columbia. And he said, yeah, I believe you are. I graduated from Columbia May 2007, so I ended up taking a position as a clinical case planner, of which I currently do right now. As someone who's experienced the system, I wonder, okay, what's the best way to use my personal experiences in a way that'll be productive? For the most part, I try to stay focused on what I'm there to do. I'm there to help the children, to help motivate them, to inspire them, and to help them reach far beyond their limits, the limits that I feel that they set for themselves.
Funding provided by the Annie E. Casey Foundation.